Greetings also to you. Tania Wise. Josiah Wise. Murdered by Jose, who is my client. The trial is always about the accused, but the case is about those two. The main facts of the case are that they are not here anymore. And I tell you that because it's true, and I tell you that because I wish you to recognize that I know it. None of the evidence that has come before you has been received by me in any inhuman or different way than you have received it. I've just lived with it for a much longer time. I wish to respond to some of the things that Prosecutor Richardson just indicated. He made a very strong case, and I told you yesterday that I am not going to quarrel with the fact that this was a coldly and calculatedly and premeditatedly done act. We have Jose's voice in his truck a couple of days before this. That was his plan. I don't dispute that. So what does that mean for you? Well, it means you're going to unanimously find that there is an aggravator. And the gate is swinging wide open for you to kill him if you want to now. The last legal requirement is met. The baby, I told you yesterday, that those photos look to me much like a newborn baby. Certainly less than 12 years of age. I don't argue that aggravator. Now there are two. I'm here to try to save my guy's life, not insult your intelligence. Those two factors are there. I don't have arguments against them that are in any way meaningful. That the crimes were committed while there were contemporaneous other capital felonies going on. Jose kills Tanya, the baby, is a contemporaneous crime. They work back and forth as aggravators. If you wish to find them so unanimously, I will only say this. The existence of the baby Josiah, the fact that Tanya was pregnant, is clearly a central fact. But Jose's intent, while it would necessarily have to cover the baby, his anger, his hatred, whatever it was that was really pushing him and motivating him along, was aimed at Tanya. There were no abdominal injuries. No indication of hatred toward the baby. Mr. Richardson tells you that because Jose said I'd lose everything, that therefore, beyond a reasonable doubt, you should all conclude that this crime was done for or affected by financial gain. No, that is not proved. If you are worrying about losing your marriage, that doesn't mean you're worried because there might be financial implications. If you're worried about losing your job because your wife is a supervisor, the uncontroverted evidence before you is that Jose has worked steadily since he's 15 and been totally self-sufficient. A divorce is not going to knock him off kilter. Fearing having to look for a new job is not going to prompt him to do a murder. That this crime was done for financial gain is not proved beyond a reasonable doubt, because of the consequences of divorce, because of child support. He paid child support for 3 children, is the evidence before you, and gave groceries and clothing for the 4th. That is not proved. Extreme facts require, says the state, an extreme sentence. These are horrible facts. Every murder is comprised of horrible facts and would consist of photos of a victim in sight, photos of a victim during autopsy. Jose, according to the evidence, planned to get Tanya to a place and kill her. That's every mob hit ever. Let's get Paulie to the club and we'll whack him. That's not an extreme fact. That's an ordinary fact. We're talking about facts of murder, mind you. We're talking about murder. To get someone to a place where no one can see to do the crime is not extreme. It's common in murder. Raul Benasco spent 90 minutes with Jose. Perhaps Mr. Richardson would prefer that he moved in with him for a year in his cell. How long is a man supposed to sit with them to learn some history and review his prison record, which is what the man's expertise is all about? That Lucinda Cook had no communication with Jose for 13 years and yet came in here after all that time to speak on his behalf doesn't count against him, it counts for him. What kind of an impression did he make on her? That after all this time she consults, she prays, and she comes in. When other people are jumping ship, she comes in. And her intention is not to tell you who he is now or quarrel with you about your verdict. It's to say, look, whatever you found that he did, I'm surprised by it because that's not the way he behaved with me and with my children. With us, he made us feel safe. And that takes me to kind of one of the topics that I want to discuss with you. I had hoped to just roll through here without having to refer to anything written, but the situation changed with my witnesses and whatnot, and so I'm going to refer to some topics here, and then I'm going to explain them to you. And one of the things that's going on here, I'm going to refer to as box and balloon. Box and balloon, it sounds like a kid's game. Bear with me here. The box is the life of Jose Soto-Escalera. In toto, everything. From birth to now, certainly from birth to the time he did the murder. And as you heard from his family, yeah, it's what's expected from family. Would your family come in and run you under the bus? I hope not. So, he was good. He was generous. He was uplifting. He was a mediator. He left and encouraged us to come out. There were good things to Jose. He comes to Florida. There are women who say good things about him. Madeline Colon and Lucinda Cook. He has long-term relationships with them. He supports emotionally and otherwise children that are his and that aren't his. He brings safety to women who are recovering from traumatic relationships. All that is in the box. At the bottom, we insert a balloon. The balloon is this crime. It is this murder. It inflates because it is the chief act within all the acts of that box. The question for you is, how big does the balloon get? Does it crowd out every other thing in a man's existence to the point where you regard him as almost inhuman and therefore like a cigarette butt or a cockroach? He's not. He's a horrible, horrible killer. And other things too. One of the topics I have written down here is humility. Humility. I recommend humility to myself. I don't always follow. I recommend humility to most people in most circumstances, and I most absolutely recommend it to you here in thinking about this. Why do I say this? Because you made an impression on me. When I sat back while Ms. Minton did all the work early in the case, I was watching and I was listening, and I was very, very impressed with your confidence. How confidently you all said, this one I'd kill him, I'd kill him, I'd kill him. This one, I don't know. You're very confident in your ability to make these judgments. And I wonder, in addition to being impressed, I say, how do these people come by this confidence? Do you have education? Do you have experience in this regard? You were on the streets a couple of weeks ago. Now you're in here deciding who lives and who dies. That's correct according to the law. And it's probably good that we don't leave it up to just one person. But I still think you ought to think about how perfectly suited you are to do this. Take a look. Think. How do you think? When's the last time or when was the first time any of you thought about how you think? Probably not. It's a thing you do. You put on your shoes, you make a bowl of cereal, you think. You're thinking all day. Your mind's taking you here and there. How exactly does it work? When have you examined the functioning of your brain? Look to that door right there. Let's use our imaginations. These folks here are essentially asking you to put a target on Jose's back and make arrangements for death to do his thing with this guy, because the law permits you to do it and you would decide that's what should be done. So through that door now comes death. Death is coming in. Coming through the gate. Death is right here. I'm asking you to imagine if death is right here in the room with us. How many of you perceive death right here in the room with us as a female? None of you, right? As a child, none of you, right? It was some hulking, some version of the Grim Reaper, right? You have conclusions and ways and things in your brain and you don't even know how they got in there. Death could be a woman. Death could be a child. It could be a noxious cloud. But you, I'm pretty sure, had death as a male. In what other ways do you think or make decisions and you're not even exactly sure what? This is intended to be an abiding decision. Live with you forever. Like your religion, like you love your children, like your sports team, things you don't change. And so if you decide to kill Jose, that means that you are right now, today, knowing how you're going to think forever, right now you're going to lock your brain into an unyielding rigidity that says, kill him. And if someone asks you next year, or in 10 years, or in 20 years, oh yeah, I'm still good with it. That's what it means. And that's why I say you should approach this with some humility. I want you to imagine something else. I'm going to call it a spectrum of death. Jose is on it. Over here is one end. And I'm at this end, and you're at this end, and everyone else in this room is at this end because we had no involvement with killing. Never killed anyone? Never thought about it? And certainly didn't engineer it and make a heavy-duty recommendation that it be done. We are all over here, unstained and unsullied by any association with death and killing. Jose is on the spectrum here. Jose is on the spectrum. Let's make this mark on the spectrum where we started with Ashley Minton's questions to you. In the next courtroom over, we've got a murderer, a first-degree murderer who intended to do it. But now, we have a little more than that. We have some aggravators. So Jose's a little further on the spectrum of death. Way out here at the other end of the spectrum of death is we'll put our state actors. Your Hitlers, your Stalins, people who killed in the millions. It's not really relevant to us, but it's out there because what you need to comprehend, and I don't know if it's ever come through in all the system, in all the sessions that we had, how do we decide what is a death penalty case? The people that you send to Tallahassee, where they become geniuses and philosopher kings, they look at the spectrum of murder, all of it, and say, okay, where are we going to pin it to say what is a death penalty case? And so the whole circumstance that we found ourselves in, just the first group came in here on September 2nd, is we are wallowing around in death and talking about death, and the first thing we do before we give him a trial is talk about the death penalty. And you're a jury of Jose's peers. But as you know from your individual groups, a lot of your peers didn't like the death penalty, but they're on the outside of the door now. So what I'm looking at is a box full of, I won't say killers, but people who are comfortable with it. You all said many, many times, oh yeah. Up and down the road, said, will you invoke death? Yes. You're the same people who just convicted him. And I'm just one guy with some words. And I'm afraid you kind of roll right through me and try and kill him, but you don't have to. Here's one simple thing. And in thinking about this argument and then making it, I kept coming back to it because I'm a very simple person, possibly a simpleton. And it is this: why would any ordinary, decent person with a conscience orchestrate a death if they don't have to? Why would you make someone die if it's not required? And it is not required under any circumstances that you have heard or will hear. If Jose is to die judicially, it's because you did it. You want it to be done. The judge can't do it on his own. You have to do it. And so you, I'll use the word contort, but maybe your brains flip right into that position naturally. I say you have to contort yourself and everything you believe and your conscience is to get to a place where you can say, I'm morally comfortable with killing a guy. Let me talk about some of the mitigators. Where's my list of mitigators? There are a lot of mitigators. There are always a lot of mitigators because anything can be a mitigator. And I'm behind the 8 ball. So I'm going to throw a lot of mitigators out there. I don't suggest they're all of equal weight. I don't even consider them all of equal weight. But I don't know which one you back there might latch on to. So I'm going to run through them quick. I might highlight a couple of them. This list will be attached to the instructions. It will be part of the instructions that the judge will read you, so you don't have to remember it. There are 29 of them, and some of them strike the same theme, but if Jose was nice to 4 people, I'm going to name them all individually. As you have heard, as the judge has told you, there's no dispute that Jose has no significant history of prior criminality. That I will highlight for a moment, because that is an extraordinary fact. Do you recognize that? This is a convicted double murderer who did nothing prior. And I think that's important, and I suggest you should think that's important, because if I'm going to make a heavy recommendation that a judge kill someone, it should be a bad person. It should be a very bad person. It should be a pretty bad person through and through. That's not who Jose is. This is an explosion of violence that comes out of nowhere in his life. It doesn't make it any better. Still makes it a murder, but it doesn't make him the type of utterly useless human who you might want to put down. He's not utterly useless. And this is not in keeping with anything that he has exhibited before. And that is very important. Jose was abandoned by his father as a child, raised in chronic poverty. I'm going to stop on that one for a minute because we did discuss that many times and a lot of people in jury selection didn't like it. And remember, we're past the guilt phase. No one is saying, poor Jose, you let him go because he grew up in poverty. But poverty brings challenges. That's all I ask you to recognize. You know, we acknowledge the importance of 2-parent homes and sufficient money to meet our needs, and yet if people don't have that, we really don't cut them any slack about it. All I'm saying is consider it as a mitigating factor. He had less than probably you and many others. I don't know exactly what that means. My dad was a school teacher. Jose suffers from transgenerational family trauma. There's problems with the mama, problems with him, problems growing up in Bridgeport with no money. Chronic exposure to trauma during his childhood. The mama seems to remember the house being fine and the neighborhood fine, but it was not fine. You heard from the cousins. This is not a fine neighborhood. It was a violent neighborhood where drugs were dealt on the streets and crime was in the streets and crime was seen. And that's not an ordinary way to grow up. Jose can positively contribute to society in prison as a worker. I don't contend that that is an especially weighty concern, but it is a totally relevant concern because remember, where is it? It's life without parole. Look at that. It's like the forgotten option somewhere. Well, I blow the dust off it, and it looks pretty good. It looks fine to me. Life without parole. Let's remember, and I will recall to you what you told us also at the same time, within probably 2 seconds of telling us you all can impose the death penalty, you all said you would consider life without possibility of parole. And if you're sitting here now not doing it, you're not following the law and you're not doing your job. If you decided last week he's guilty and you're going to kill him, you're working a charade and a fraud on us right now. So everybody's mind better be open. You don't have to like what I'm telling you, but you got to listen to it. And you told us you would consider it. And I'm not exactly striking the tone of a beggar here, but nevertheless, you have a job to do, and I'm going to make sure that you do it. Jose has established and maintains long-term substantive meaningful relationships with friends. Jose has established close family bonds and relationships with his cousins. You know penalties have consequences that ripple if you're going to kill someone. You know that. You've heard from the victims in the case. Jose has maintained a close relationship with his mother, maintains close family bonds with his children. You know, that's supposed to be the motive here. And yet he said opportunity galore and never killed anyone. That doesn't mean he didn't do this, he did. But if he is monstrously wrong for killing one child, you can't deny him or deny the existence of the fact that he helped and contributed and lived a meaningful part of his other children's lives for a long time. I don't know if there's a rug back in the jury room, but you would not be doing right to pick up the corner of it and sweep facts you don't like under it. Jose demonstrated exemplary jail behavior. He poses no danger to prison staff or inmates. Again, these are all relevant considerations if he is going to be living for years before execution and living out the rest of his life in prison. How he will do in prison is completely relevant for you to consider. Jose has been a positive influence on family members. Jose will be required to work 60 hours a week. That's every day in DOC. As a prisoner, you know, Jose is a prisoner. He's been a prisoner for 7 years. When you capture prisoners in war, you don't kill them. It's a war crime. But here, it's okay to kill prisoners. Think about that. You're being asked to kill a prisoner. He's neutered. He's nothing. He's been in handcuffs and shackles behind bars in a secure jail, guarded 24/7 for more than 7 years. What is the need to kill him? You got that much of an urge? Take him out of his cage and put him down? He's helpless. He's hopeless. That's enough. Your common sense should tell you, your understanding of the world, at least the United States, should tell you that there's plenty of states that don't have a death penalty at all. And they might say, well, he's a prisoner. Well, you got to kill him. You kill prisoners. That's where your morality is. You kill prisoners. Who's more helpless than the prisoner? Jose was a positive influence on his former girlfriends and their children. Jose can be redeemed. For that matter, you know what Jose did 7 years ago. Do you know where his head is at now? If he is taken out in several years and executed, you kill the body, but what is his head? Where will his mind be at? Do you know? Will he be the same person? Because that's how punishment works. Of course, who among us hasn't suddenly snatched up one of our children, put him over our knee, administered a spanking, and said, "That's for what you did 7 months ago." It's not how punishment should work. Jose provides support for his children. No prior history of violence. No criminality, no violence. He has helped his former girlfriend and his son's mother escape dangerous domestic violence situations. He has always been a hard worker in manual labor fields, furniture delivery, security work, others. Jose escaped a high-crime, high-poverty area independently, moving to Florida when he was just 15 years old, and he made it on his own. Despite lacking the opportunity to complete his education, he overcame that lack of education through consistent work ethic. He never took a dime of public money, even though he was just a teenager. And again, that undercuts the argument that he did this killing in any way connected to or for or about pecuniary or financial gain. He's always had to work and always had money. Jose has exhibited excellent courtroom behavior. You probably know that people accused of crimes, especially murderers, especially in long trials and processes, they don't always keep their mouths shut and they don't always behave. Jose has behaved just as he has behaved as an inmate. Jose will continue to offer positive life influence on his children, family members, and friends who have become emotionally dependent on him. He began working and earning money to help support his family at a young age. He's always been self-supporting, as I mentioned, not a drain on society. Some, if not all of those, you should find exist a little more likely than not, and then you are required to consider them. What weight you give them is completely up to you. This part of the process seemed to confuse a lot of your fellow people who didn't make it onto the jury, who kept insisting that the law, they're just going to follow the law. The law is depositing you off here at a crossroads if you don't realize it yet. Okay, you are going to tell the law what will happen here. Life, forever and ever, until you die and they take you out of prison, or death penalty. And the law doesn't tell you which one. But the law does tell you that life without possibility of parole, like the stepchild option in here, is not a stepchild option. It's perfectly good. The law gives you a choice because it's perfectly happy with the life. Perfectly happy. And so should you be. It would keep you off the spectrum of death. If you do order and recommend that Jose be killed, you're not outside over here off the spectrum of death. You move a little bit closer to him. You now have some involvement in killing. Not that you'll do it yourself. You'll just set the first domino falling that will result in it. Jurors isolated from the execution. You're making a moral decision, but you're not making it in a vacuum, and don't think because it will happen years down the line and you won't be there and the needle won't be in your hand that you're not responsible. That's my point to you. You are responsible. The prison is far away. You're still responsible if it happens. Well, someone else in the state's employ, the state executioner, will do it, so your hands will be dirty, but it's your handiwork that will be done. So don't think of it as just, you making a death recommendation is like dropping some instructions off on your secretary's desk as you leave for a long weekend. It is not that. Victim impact statements. We heard from several members of Tanya's family mother, I suggest especially her son, who I thought testified very impressively for his mother. And it may not matter coming from me, but I'm quite certain his mother is proud of him and would be proud of him. But I hate victim impact statements, not for the reason you probably think. Because in fact, I love victim impact statements done right. Victims should have a voice. They should be heard, especially in crimes of violence and especially in loss of life cases. I think victim impact statements should be published in the newspaper, and court administration should pay for it. They should have a voice. But here, in this process, that voice is best expressed to the judge with experience, not to the jurors with none. Because within this tight process that you're following that might lead to someone's death, in comes these victim impact statements, and where do they fit into the process? They do not. What will the judge tell you? Well, the purpose is to establish the uniqueness of the victim and the impact on the family and community. Who would dispute that a murder victim is unique? Everyone in here. We're all the same and all exactly different. Of course Tania Wise is unique and special and has special characteristics and qualities. But the only thing that you're instructed to do is not regard it as an aggravator. Well, what are you hearing it for then? It for sure ain't no mitigator. Every single one of those statements is like an emotion bomb, a sympathy grenade going off, bespattering the walls with sympathy. Not for my guy. In fact, it is so much seeming like an aggravator that you have to be told it's not an aggravator. So that's one thing I don't like about it, that it's dropped in here unfairly. It operates against me and my client, but what am I supposed to do with it? What are you supposed to do with it? It's not an aggravator, and you're only supposed to be deciding the case on aggravators and mitigators, so what are you supposed to do with it? And the other reason I don't like it is because it lends itself to being a victim ranking system. If Tania Wise had no family whatsoever to come in here for her and give victim impact statements, is her life and her murder any less important thereby? No. If Tania Wise was the chief of surgery at the local hospital and saved hundreds of lives through her surgical skills, would that make a difference? It should not. One man, one vote, one murder victim, all the same. They're all the same. Every life is valued the same. No life is valued more than another. If Tania had nobody to come, if that whole segment was not here at all, okay, it's victim impact time. No one stay here. So what are you supposed to do? She must not be worth very much. Right? Or, look, if it's 100 people come in, she must be worth so much. It's a victim ranking system. It stinks. Everyone's the same. No one deserves to be killed, no matter who you are. And so I don't like it for that reason. Look, this case is loaded with emotion from top to bottom. And that's just a gigantic injection of it, and for what? I'm not sure what you're supposed to do with it, and you can't be sure either, because it doesn't fit in. It's not an aggravator or a mitigator. That's what we're doing here. We're weighing aggravators and mitigators. We're figuring out factors of his character that might lead you to not kill him. That Tania is unique. That her family is mourning. That there's a void that won't be filled. Yes. But that's not the point. The point is that she is a person who should be alive and is not now, due to Jose's criminality. Who she is important, but it's important outside of this process. Here's another one of my little topics that I wrote. This is not fixable situation? You know that. Tanya's gone for 7 years now, just I never had a chance. Never began. Whether he is imprisoned, Jose, for the rest of his life, or whether he gets taken out at some point and injected to death, whatever they put in there, Tanya and Josiah will not come back. It can't be made right. And we, you, me, that doesn't, it just doesn't fit right. And I think it especially doesn't fit right for Americans because we don't think, okay, look, what are we going to do about it? Let's do something. There is nothing meaningful that can be done. If there are people rooting for the death of Jose, I don't know that there are. If that day comes, they may experience a moment or a day of satisfaction, but I think the next day after, the heaviness and the sadness of the loss is still there. It's undiminished. That's the fact. He lives or dies is less important than the loss that cannot be made right. Killing him won't fix it. It won't fix it. It won't take the pain away. Let's talk about something that we mentioned in jury selection. Which, by the way, does it seem that Ms. Minton, that poor Ashley did so much of the work here in this case and I did relatively so little? That's my fault. Here's a little inside baseball for you. This is my case. I am lead attorney in the case, and Ms. Minton works for me, so to speak, under my supervision. And I could have done everything, or I could have done nothing. But like I told you yesterday, I waited a long time for my chance to speak to you. And the detectives among you have already figured out, because I knew I would be here. I knew there would be a penalty phase. And I figured that this would be the hottest part of the trial for Mr. Jose Soto-Escalera. And so I figured that this ought to be my post of duty and not Miss Ashley's post of duty. But everything that has transpired in this courtroom has been done with my knowledge and my approval from the defense side of things. And you know what? You know why? Maybe you're thinking, well, hey, Attorney Burns, what did you drag us to a trial for if you figured your guy was guilty already? Because they're trying to kill my guy, and they're going to cross every T and dot every I before they get to do that. Late in a losing game, a losing effort, the final seconds click off the clock. The quarterback doesn't drop back in the pocket and take a knee and give up. He heaves the ball as far as he can and hopes for a miracle. Do you think you are the only ones who can read and understand and appreciate and see evidence and what it means? I've been doing this for a long time. Whatever you can do in that regard, I can do better. I knew I would be here. And we make no apologies for fighting every step of the way, including now. And frankly, I feel like I'm in the last ditch, maybe fighting you all off when I got nothing but a rusty sword in my hand, a slingshot, nothing but words. And I really don't want you to kill my guy. But we're going to talk now about mercy. I hear some of your voices. I hear them from here saying, oh, counselor. Attorney Burns, I was kind of half with you, sort of paying attention up to this point. But mercy for this guy? Mercy. You may, if you hearken back just a few weeks, you will recall when Miss Ashley was addressing this topic with you. The point that was attempted to be made and the distinction to be made is how does mercy work? Does the guy who gets it have to earn it? People who give it just give it? the concept, I believe, that was attempted to be taught to you, and there's not really much time in that classroom where you have to address 20 other matters, is that mercy is always in the power of the victor. Weak people, losers, don't get to grant mercy. People who have power get to grant mercy. And so, whether it's withheld or granted has very little to do with the recipient and very much to do with you, the grantors. It's a statement of who you are. And so, if any of you are still even within earshot on this issue of mercy, you need to just consult yourself and say, look, am I a merciful person or not? What does mercy mean in this case? The merciful thing is to condemn Jose to live for decades and decades and decades in prison behind bars until he dies. To become institutionalized and infantilized over time and told when to go to bed and when lights on and lights out and when to eat and not to eat and look through bars and never get out. If I imprison you guys in your old high schools, how long would it be before you went crazy? He'll be in a prison. That's most people would not consider that a merciful result, but that's what mercy means here. So it's not a great big fat dollop of mercy, go forth Jose. It's a little drop of mercy that says, I'm going to kill you. That's all the mercy that would be requested here. Let me take you back a couple of days, and I'm going to read you some words that Judge Merman read to you in describing the elements of first-degree murder. And then I'm going to make an argument from that by reworking those words a little bit. None of what I say to you is a legal instruction. It's just an argument. It's just food for thought. Killing with premeditation is killing after consciously deciding to do so. The decision must be present in the mind at the time of the killing. The law does not fix the exact period of time that must pass between the formation of the premeditated intent to kill and the killing. The period of time must be long enough to allow reflection by the defendant. The premeditated intent to kill must be formed before the killing. That's what the judge read to you. Now I'm going to change it up a little bit. Killing with premeditation is killing after consciously deciding to do so. The decision must be present in the mind of each juror at the time of engineering the killing. The law does not fix the exact period of time that must pass between...
Proper argument. You don't approve. You may continue.
Right. What I'm saying to you is the process that you are relying on should be pretty ironclad. It should be clear. You should be able, if you're going to decide as jurors to impose the death penalty, to plant your foot on one firm piece of ground after another all the way through to that decision. And if there's something strange that comes into that process, you should consider it. You should weigh that. Because as Ms. Minton told you in jury selection, this is a moral decision that you make as individuals. And it should be based on a system that you understand and that you can follow. I am going to talk about what you've been asked to do last week and what you're asked to do now. And I'm going to do a compare and contrast. At no point am I suggesting that anything you do or might do is illegal. I am not asking that anything you do or not do is in any way related to you being murderers or illegal killers or equating you in any moral way with Jose. But you were asked last week to convict a man because he thought about doing a killing beforehand and did it. What are you being asked to do?
Objection, again, improper argument. The difference is.
I'll complete the thought and I'll rule on the objection if there is one.
The process that is before you, if you follow the instructions and carry it out and think about it, means that you're thinking about forming the intention to ask the judge, recommend the judge to kill Jose. So in this circumstance, it's righteous, right? So sometimes thinking real hard about doing a killing is okay, if you're comfortable with that. If you should go back there and 8 or more of you decide independently, and by the way, this is an independent thing. I don't say you can't talk to one another or nothing like that. But so far you have kind of walked the path together. Jury selection, you get on the jury, you hear the evidence, you've made your decision, and now all of you stand here at the point together. But you sort of come up the stem with a base of a Y, and now you're at the V part and you're looking at the crossroads. That's where the law has deposited you now. And I have acknowledged that the state has demonstrated that there are aggravators. And as I told you, the gate is open for you to kill. And I recommended humility. I recommend you don't go down that path. I wonder, with that gate open, I don't actually think so looking at you, but if any of you might now or in 5 minutes or 10 minutes regard it as some sort of a temptation. No one gets to be in your position, very few people, to say, live or die. Look, here he is, live or die, it's up to you. It might be tempting. Walk the path that people don't get to walk. It's a forbidden path, highly forbidden. But it's open to you. If you should find it alluring or tempting in any way, the forbidden fruit of control over someone's life or death, you're not in the Garden of Eden being tempted, you're in the Valley of Death being tempted. Walk out of it. Go away. Take the other path. Do not do any killing that is not absolutely required, and this is not required ever. Sometimes large matters can be understood in simple ways, in things that might happen all of a sudden. And you don't even know it until it happens. And one of those, I'm going to hang with me here if you can on this example, is I call it lean in, lean out. Lean in, lean out. People, they lean in, they like something. Lean out when they don't. Lean in to give that first kiss. Hopefully someone's leaning back. Maybe they're not. Maybe they get to lean back. Never happened to me, of course. But I use the example in this way. If you are a juror who votes to impose the death penalty, and you should remember, this is an abiding decision. You're good with it now, you're good with it tomorrow, you're good with it forever. You should end up in conversation with someone, the topic comes up. And what did you do? I voted to kill him. Whoa. You're going to get the whoa. You're not going to get the quiet. And the person hasn't had a chance to think about it. It hasn't penetrated to the consciousness of that hearer at all. But you're going to get this, you're going to draw back in a woe because you just admitted to them that you're on the spectrum. You're on the killing spectrum. You're not over here, the rest of us having nothing to do with it. You just said, yeah, I set a man up to die. And that doesn't get him. That gets him. Think about that. This is a big decision. Yeah, I'm just about done. I'm running out of juice. When you go home this afternoon, after having come back and given us your decision, you will now be a life giver or a life taker. You're not going to be the same. If you vote to set the wheels in motion, to give a heavy recommendation to this judge to kill this man, you're not going to be the same. This is a life taker. You are not. Leave the life taker alone on the spectrum of death. Don't take a step nearer to him. You don't have to. I invite you in my final words to consult your best selves, the highest portions of your consciences, the lightness in your heart, not the darkness in your heart. To rot and die in prison is not merciful. It is a horrible, horrible sentence. Do that to him. Thank you.